All right, so a person that maybe doesn't need any introduction, Guillermo del Toro, thank you for coming in and speaking to our film students at the University of Colorado in Denver. I'm going to hit record really quick. It means so much to the game. I know how busy you are.
Recording in progress.
All right, so our moderators tonight are Tony Vampiro and Aliyah, and we're so very excited. Go ahead, guys, take it away.
Hola, Guillermo. Nice to meet you.
Hola,
Mucho gusto. Buenas noches. Cool. Let's see. We're gonna start off with the first question, and I hope you're doing well. I hope everything's good.
Doing okay, yeah.
That's nice.
A little bit of postpartum depression, but other than that,
Well, actually, before we get started, also, we just watched Frankenstein, so can we get like a little clap for that? And we'll get started with our first question.
Yeah. So, a quote that one of our professors once said that stuck with me was that filmmaking is not a glamorous job. I wonder who said that. As Aliyah and I researched the making of Kronos back in, we found that there were plenty of trials and tribulations throughout the production.
yeah, of course.
You were 28. Many of us are approaching that time of our lives. My question is, how do we become better problem solvers when presented with obstacles throughout the filmmaking process?
Well, first of all, when I started Kronos, I was 26. And it took 2 years to complete it because exactly nothing quite happened as promised or planned. You know, in fact, at the end of the movie, I mean, I had worked, my father said to me, look, this filmmaking thing is not gonna work, so you should work with me on real estate for 5 years, and then at least I'll know you have a fallback position, right? So I worked for 5 years, I built my first house, and during those 5 years, and at the end of, right when we were about to complete Kronos, one investor didn't come in with $250,000. And I said, well, I'll mortgage the house and I'll pay for it. So, you know, I did that. I sold my van, I mortgaged the house, and I completed the movie. So, but then even that didn't go well. There were so many things that go wrong. The Mexican Institute of Film didn't want the movie to be shown because they were ashamed of it. And they said it's not an art movie, this is horror, which is what they said from the beginning. And by sheer chance, the head of the Critics Week in Cannes saw the movie and said, this is the one I'm taking, the only one I'm taking, you know? And Woody won the Critics Week in Cannes, which was the first Mexican movie to win any awards in Cannes for 30 years. So that's kind of nice. But this takes about 5 years of my life, in which I contemplated everything from suicide by arsenic to, you know, to just never doing it again. And I said it's impossible. The movie won 9 Academy Awards in Mexico or something like that, and about 30 awards internationally, and still the Mexican Institute of Film didn't want to do my next movie. So, you know, look, there's 3 pieces of advice I can offer. One, you should know going in that it doesn't get completely well, ever. There are maybe 3 filmmakers in the world that can say, I want to do this, and they'll do it. You know? There's very few, very few. And most of us have to wait for the right moment at the right time in the right place to get something approved. I mean, Pinocchio and Frankenstein took more than 20 years. And I've been pursuing it since I was a kid. And nobody wanted it precisely for the very reasons that made those movies successful, but they were not things that anybody was used to. You know, when I said, well, you know, the same way that the Mexican Institute of Film said Kronos is a horror movie, not an art film, people would listen to me about Pinocchio and Frankenstein, then they would say, this is an art film, not a horror film. You know, and it always, if you want to keep your voice, which I have managed over 30 years or more, you know, then it's not easy. But if you don't, then it's not worth it. Because making movies is like eating a sandwich of shit. you get more bread as you go along, but you always get shit. always that aftertaste. So you should never believe that it gets easier. Or nobody has it easier. I have had talks with everybody from George Miller to Steven Spielberg, and Steven will tell you nobody wanted to do E.T. Nobody. They passed on it. After Jaws, after Close Encounters, they passed. They passed on Lincoln. I've been there during the tribulations of Jim Cameron, was very strong, so he pushed us through. But when the studio didn't believe in True Lies, didn't believe in Avatar, I can tell you that that's the beauty of this. It is not a glamorous business, it's not a glamorous profession, but it is a profession. So you have to understand that you have to be, David Cronenberg said one thing to me, he said, you have to have two skins, a thin one for the art and a thick one for the business. So it's very important that you prepare yourself and be tough with those that are tough with you. And you have to be prepared to be sensitive to those that are your collaborators. But it's a mixture of, imagine a poet and a boxer at the same time. You have to be a brawler and a thinker and a poet and a delicate waning flower of sensibility and sensitivity, and at the same time you have to be, well, Professor Maypana, a motherfucker. With those that are like that with you, you have to be really tough, and I can be tough if it need be. I survived the Weinsteins. I survived the kidnapping of my father. I survived many things. You have to know that it's a very Darwinian business. So these are the things I can offer in response to that. And the final thing is know the tools, because you're working with hardware. It's not, people think that it's like an iPhone, or people that don't know think that we're shooting with an iPhone. The way we're shooting with a piece of railing, a gigantic dolly, a piece of glass in front of a lens, and you need to know the difference between moving a dolly, a Steadicam, or a crane, to give you an example. You want to shoot it with a 40, you want to shoot it with a 24. Not the same thing ever, Know your lenses, know your camera, know the rail, know the tracks, know the tools, because then you have exactly the symphonic movement that you want. And the more you know, the better it gets. And I think that's what I would say about that, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, yeah. I have another question. What do you see as your responsibility to raise up the voices of our people? And do you see yourself as a resistant fighter, like with your messages, with your films, yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you see yourself doing?
The first law of representation is don't fuck it up. You get the job, don't fuck it up. Because then you're fucking it up for anyone from your country, your race, your ethnicity, whatever that comes after you. So, how can we have more Latin filmmakers? Having successful Latin filmmakers that keep their voice, that have identity, that, so now that's part one. Second one is I have produced and keep producing many Latin American filmmakers, or even Mexican and Spanish language filmmakers. Jorge Gutierrez, I produced the Book of Life, Insignificant Things in Mexico, Un Embrujo, Carlos Carrera's movie, Rudo y Cursi from Carlos Cuarón. I write Latin characters like Clifton Gonzalez in Pacific Rim. There are 3 Mexican leads on the series The Strain. You know, I have 2 scholarships active that are going to disperse over $3 or $4 million in the next few years. One is a scholarship that awards every year. Anybody can study anything they want anywhere in the world related to cinema, anywhere, any school, anything they want to study, and we'll pay for everything. Food, board, school, materials, everything. Do you want to study cinematography in Poland? We'll get you there. The second one is a scholarship of stop animation education in Gobeland, an Asian school, and whoever wins, some years we've had 1 winner, some years we have 3 winners. And I say, we'll never desert somebody that they deem talented. We have put through about 10 animators in the last 8 years, 7 years. Many of them have been shortlisted for Academy Awards. Because when you change one life, you change a whole generation. Somebody in that classroom is going to change a generation. I don't know who. You must be thinking, I am. Right? So that's the right attitude. On top of that, always be available to consult, present, showcase Mexican filmmakers. You know, I do that almost every year without fail. This year, with my preoccupation of stop motion animation, I basically godfathered the first stop motion animation film in the history of Mexico, Frankelda. And you know, I've been mentoring those kids since they were in their teens or early 20s. I have done everything from advising them to loaning them money to consoling them at night. I call them every day. Sometimes, even if I'm on campaign or whatever. So you mentor people. Isa Lopez, if she needs any advice, I'm there. You know, so you stay available like that. I think that all those gestures are conducive. And what I don't think you can do is just fly solo. You know, I think you carry with yourself your country. You know, and when the Mexican Academy Awards were in danger, I offered to pay for the ceremony. I am a Mexican filmmaker working internationally, but my heart, my roots are Mexican, so you know that's it. And then I think that when I was growing up, when we were starting, you would go to a meeting in Hollywood and nobody would even see you. My DP, Guillermo Navarro, who won the Oscar for Pan's Labyrinth, met with an agent, and the agent said, and I quote, that why would I meet a Mexican? I already have a gardener. That's what he said. You know, I would go and they would say, well, we have this movie about Narcos, or we have this movie about Charros, and I would say, would you offer a movie about the mounted police to David Cronenberg? Would you offer a movie about pasta to Dario Argento? Why do you offer me these things? I have a personality. But now, models of behavior, models of success, models of recognition exist for Latin filmmakers to go and say, I want to direct this sci-fi adventure. I want to direct, you name it. Nobody's going to say the same things. But you're always going to find that your duty never ends. I don't think I'll ever feel, no matter what the institutions saw or didn't see in my movies in Mexico, I love my country. And I think we are great artists. I think we have great storytelling to do. We bring a particular sensibility. I do not see a first world filmmaker going that crazy with a movie like Frankenstein. Not in the colors, not in the passion, not in the melodrama, not in the emotional level in a world that is normally ashamed of emotion. I am not. And some people don't like it, that the movies provoke so much emotion. I do. So fuck them. I like singing.
I'm going to have Tony ask another question. As he's asking it, Evelyn, can you come down? Violet, can you come down as well? Tony, go ahead.
Yeah. So, with that being said, as Aliyah and I looked through some sketches from your personal notebook during the preparation for Pan's Labyrinth, we were astonished by the detail of each drawing and the depth of the notes that surrounded the sketches. I'd love to hear you share more in your own words about how like this extensive visualization and note-taking aids you in your filmmaking.
Look, I can paint, sculpt, draw, mold, and I'm technically very prepared because I did 15 years almost special effects. I did makeup effects, stop motion animation, mechanical effects, cable control, optics, etc., etc. So what you have to find is what you're good at. I don't care if it's cinematography or writing or whatever, and go deep. The other thing that you do is do not just base your culture on film. Study architecture. I mean, I am a closeted production designer, you know? I get very, very involved in that because to me it's storytelling. I know very, very well the history of fine painting and fine arts. So if I'm doing Pacific Rim, I don't go and look at an anime. I already looked at that. I go and look at an Italian movement called Futurism, which unfortunately was very linked to the rise of Mussolini and all that, but there's a sculptor called Boccioni that has these massive figures in motion, and I said that's what they should move like. Or I present the painting by Goya called the Colossus, you know? For Pan's Labyrinth, I was inspired by Arthur Rackham, who was a children's fairy tale illustrator of the highest level, and Edmond Dulac, you know, and Odilon Redon, the symbolist, painter and engraver. So your language needs to be much more varied than just what has been done on film. That's what I advise, and then try to draw. Even if you're good or not good, you know, the more you practice, the better you get at it. And study composition, study movement. If you see a movie, think about it like a book. Consult it, try to break it down. There are some people that are so good at 1 minute, 2 minute masters and then minimal coverage that you should study them, you know. Study the craft. And prepare all you can. That's the cheapest part of making a movie. And then allow the accidents to take you where they want to take you on the day. If something goes wrong, sometimes it's actually the movie telling you what it needs. You know? The example that is very well known on Frankenstein is we designed, wrote, and sculpted the creature, makeup effects, and all the parts for a different actor than Jacob. 9 weeks before the movie started, that actor left. And I think it's a blessing. You know, so everything that goes wrong on a film, it can be something you need to oppose or something you may want to use. So know the difference between an undertow and a tide. The undertow will pull you down. The tide will get you to the shore. You know? So use both. You know, you cannot fight for everything. If everything is, if you cannot bend and jive and riff with film, and this is a thing that people enthrone that is not true. When people say visionary, I go, sorry, I'm not a fucking visionary. I wake up at 5:55 in the morning, have a coffee, and work really hard all day. I don't lay there and say, I see a door. No, we're not delicate. We're hard workers. And if you know that, then I think you know that you need to learn to draw, whatever your angle is. You're good at clothes, right? Then it's super picky about wardrobe. I like to draw. I like to say, look, these are the shades and the colors we're gonna use in these other reasons. So I illustrate a lot my notes.
Evelyn?
Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for coming out. I wanted to ask you about kind of a theme that I've seen in your general work, and I think your work features a lot of themes of colonization, especially of the body, and I'm wondering how you write decolonial narratives in your stories.
Well, look, all you can identify is there are two creative forces in the universe: love and rage. So whatever you're raging against, you just do it. You speak from your gut, you know? I don't think you can construct a theme, but you can be eloquent about it, you know? And look, life is in the margins for me. I like to think that it's good to, of course, movies they can be very expensive and they require money to be promoted, but they're not. You know, if you want to do a movie that is savage and undomesticated and small, just do it. You know, and then through the years, through the decades, sometimes you have access to larger budgets and you end up doing what you want, but it's rare. You know, Frankenstein didn't get made before because nobody wanted it. You know, and then one person wanted it. You know, Ted Sarandos said, well, give me your bucket list. And I said, Pinocchio and Frankenstein. I said, do it. Let them do you want them, you know? So, you know, how do you write? I think that if in you there is rage for colonization, don't name it that, name it you. You're writing for you. What makes you angry, then others can classify, and if you align, you're gonna align with the assholes or the people telling the truth to the assholes. You know? That's it. Don't worry about, theme should never come before story. Because if I tell you, my uncle went to the market and in the course of 20 steps from the car to the grocery store, he got beaten by a cop and taken. And I don't know where he is. Everything that thematically should be gained from that narrative, raging against a father, raging against a country, raging against a military movement, whatever. Tell me the story. Your uncle went to the market, I relate to. So, you know, I think that it's particularly hard because a movie should happen with the connection directly from your gut and your mind to the screen. And try not to filter the craft, yes. The craft is this, but what are you talking about? Like, you have a story? Tell me one.
Yeah, I have a story about a private detective who imagines a woman so clearly that he thinks she's real, and he ends up killing himself because of it.
I like it. Already 5 things in there. You know, it's fantastic. So that you know, now you try to tell me this is about this or that in a theme. You know, you lose a little bit of the connection because then what I'm trying to say is in telling a story, you should not relinquish to larger structures. Whether they're good or bad socially or philosophically, do not relinquish your instincts to a series of parameters. Because then you're giving your story to those parameters. And those can tell you, no, don't go there. Don't let anyone tell you don't go there, or anything. If you feel you're gonna go through it and people get offended, fucking say it. You know, a story is a window, not a wall. It should let you through. And if something stops you, it's not an artistic exercise. Anything that stops you is a superstructure. So don't let superstructures, whether they're good, worthy or not, just all you have is your gut.
Thank you. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
By the way, I want to see that story.
First of all, thank you so much for spending time with us. This is really amazing. Sorry, I had to write my question down on my phone so I'm not just like spewing gibberish. But I was wondering what your process was working with Kate Hawley, the costume designer. Each piece of clothing is so incredibly rich and very thematic and symbolic. Can you share a little bit about that and your process with it?
Yeah, I met Kate when we were preparing The Hobbit in New Zealand, and I said, I really want to work with you. Even when I left The Hobbit, I said, you and I are working together. So I took her to Pacific Rim, which was a big project for her to jump on, because it was basically her first feature, basically, and it's a gigantic movie. So I think he is a genius. There, almost every department, I am really breathing over their shoulder. Kate, I come in for nourishment. I go in and say, let's see and the only thing we know, the rule is that all the departments are interconnected. That's the only rule. No one should operate alone, because we are creating not eye candy, but eye protein. We're telling the story. So, Kate, for example, I say, don't show me ideas, show me story points. The same piece of clothing, buttoned all the way up, is one character. 3 buttons down, that's another character. 5 buttons down, that's a different character. Sleeves are rolled, that's one character. Sleeves are not rolled, separate character. It's made of silk, different character. It's made of cotton, different character. So when you know that, look at everybody around you. All of us present ourselves to the world. Everybody around you is dressed, made a decision what to wear that morning. And they're saying who they are. We all tell people who we are by what we wear. And over the years, one of the things that obsesses me is that the thing that is most telling on any character are the shoes. And everybody can tell you one thing, but they think the shoes are not important. The shoes tell you exactly who that person is. In my opinion, this is not based on fact. But so Kate, we see 50 different notions for the wardrobe, and I choose the most narrative ones. If something is not conducive or it looks too much like an idea, then I say, don't do that. That looks like a decision. But that's what I do. But she is a complete genius. And when the time came, Kate said, I need this guy from France, this guy from Italy, and the production is giving me a hard time, and I go, don't worry, you'll get them, and I go and get them. When she said, we need to loom the fabric, we need to weave the fabric. I don't want to buy the rolls of fabric, because I want them to be imbued with the patterns of arterial blood, or stone minerals, or the wings of a butterfly. The veils are embedded with X-rays and anatomical things, and we agreed that the veils were necessary to create a painterly gauze over the characters. And production says, what? You're gonna weave the fabric? And I go, yeah, we're gonna weave the fabric, because it's an opera, right? So I protect her. I nourish her, I stimulate her, and I say, go for it, because she's one of the people I admire the most. And whose work I give her parameters. For example, I say, I want Victor to be dressed like a rock star in the 60s. I want him to look like he came out of a meeting with the Rolling Stones in Soho, in London. So give me flare pants, give me a little too much heel on the boot, give me a sideways hat, you know, because he is a rock star, you know, and he should have the ego of a singer, you know. So then she runs with it, and what you see is what you get. You know, when I talked to Elizabeth, I said, Elizabeth should look like a butterfly, a moth, an insect. You know, it should be the same color of the beetles that she's gonna use. Let's include Beatles motifs in her dressing, and then she should become like the creature, pale, and like big, and only her, Victor's mom, and Victor should have red, because Victor should fall in love with his mom. That's why Mia Goth plays both parts, the mom and Elizabeth. So you know, you discuss story. That's how you work with anybody. What are you telling me? Why is this? You know, if a set looks like a set, it's different than a set that looks like a great building. So you want to straddle that. That line is this small.
Thank you. So I want to give the floor back to Aliyah. And then as Aliyah's talking, Jose, can you come down? Jose Hinojos.
Let's see. I wanted to ask you for.
Hey, Tony.
Oh.
Excellent.
I want to ask you. Sorry. I want to ask you for like your first experience watching Frankenstein and how much of like sentimental value that was for you, or if there's any like other. Like maybe other like movies, artwork that you've seen that also touch your heart, but mainly I don't know. You can talk about.
You mean the original Frankenstein?
Yes, yes.
Well, I mean, I think it's not exaggeration to say that it changed my life, because it did. I don't know if you know the story of when I saw it, but I saw it on a Sunday after church. And it became my church. You know, I said, you know, like, what happens when you're a weirdo is when you see a saint weirdo, you say, that's me. You know, it can be a rocker, it can be an artist, it can be an actor, it can be a singer. I saw Boris Karloff and I said, that's my Jesus. And I finally understood what my grandma felt about Jesus, because I felt like that with Boris Karloff, you know? Except Jesus was dressed a lot more sexy in that cross than Boris Karloff. but the idea for me became like he embodies me. That's how I felt inside at age 7. I felt like a complete oddity. You know? And then I read the book at age 11 and I thought, well, nobody has done the book. I'm gonna do it. You know? And I felt like the creature, and I felt like Mary Shelley. At age 11, I realized that a large part of me was an 18-year-old English girl. You know, and I said, yeah, I found my twin soul. Other guys had crushes on Farrah Fawcett, I had a crush on the Bronte sister. You know? And I felt equally to the side, equally outside the norms of what people thought a boy should be in 1960s in Mexico. You know, you needed to be outgoing and play football and be in the sun. And I wanted to be in the shadow reading, preferably with cobwebs, you know, and hating everybody that was happy in the sun. So, you know, that's why I say the only two forces of expressing yourself are rage and love. That's it. And they're both very useful. Except we are really afraid of both now. People want to be well behaved in the arts. And I understand that you know, your approval of somebody like Picasso or Gauguin, who were not very nice people, but I'd rather learn what they're thinking than Bob Ross, who was a very nice guy and painted happy trees. I don't need to. I don't want to know what he thinks because there's not that much interest for me on that. But I do want to know what these guys like. I mean, Caravaggio was. Most of the guys in the Renaissance, a lot of them were swindlers, hoaxers, or criminals. You know, they stabbed, dueled, killed, forged, defaulted on loans and down payments. Went from one, Italy was divided in several countries. They went from one kingdom to another, so they wouldn't be arrested. But the art is amazing. So I think that Frankenstein, for me, represented the possibility of being imperfect, even being fucked up. I think we have every right to be fucked up. Why not? I mean, we're not running for office. We're not an elected official. I'm not dictating communion or religion or law. Why shouldn't we be fucked up? Why? You know? Why do we have to, why do we treat entertainers like politicians and politicians like entertainers? You know? We vote for people that entertain us, and we want to demand policy from people that just sing well. I don't want to follow them any further than their fucking songs. I don't know what they eat, who they hang out with. I have no interest in what they do. So, Frankenstein became the patron saint of imperfection for me. And that's how important it became. It became the cornerstone of what I think is my religion, which is a gospel of monsters. And now, my dear friend, I shall take off because I must go. But if you want to do one last question.
Yes, one last. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. So, super fast, talk to us about Dick Smith. He was a close friend of yours and a teacher, a mentor. Yeah, I'm curious about what principles you learned from Dick Smith, whether technical or philosophical, you think are absolutely necessary for us to carry throughout our careers.
Well, I tell you, he changed my life. I wanted to do Kronos. When I was growing up, there was no festival for Mexican film, so we made one. Now it's in its 40-something year. It's still going on. There was no film school. We made one. It's still going on strong right now. And there was no makeup effects, so I said, okay, if I want to do Kronos, I got to learn makeup effects. I got to become a sculptor, a mold maker. And I wrote to Dick Smith, who was offering a course on makeup effects, and I said, if I don't learn makeup effects, nobody will make my movie real. So I need to make the effects on my movie, which my company did on Kronos. And I said, and I have 5 to 10 years to do it because I need to know all the techniques. And he wrote back and he said, there are far more talented people than you at sculpting, far more talented people than you at illustration, but you are the one in the most need. So you're in. And he said, come to Larchmont, New York, to meet me. Now, we're talking about a guy that won an Academy Award with Amadeus. He did The Exorcist, Alter Stage, The Godfather, Marathon Man. I mean, this is Little Big Man. This is a legend. I arrived to Larchmont, and he's waiting for me at the train station. And he takes me to lunch. And that's the first thing I learned. If somebody with any talent needs me, I'm there. So about 2 months ago, I took the Frankelda guys to Toronto. I drove them around. I took them to lunch. I took them to dinner. I advised them and sent them on their way home. Took them to London to see the scoring. So you need to know that he did that for me, a kid from Guadalajara. The other principles were hard work, hard work, hard work. which also my father instilled in me. You have to work really, 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 really hard. And if you are Mexican, you have to work twice as hard, you know? And the final one he said, he said, from makeup effects you'll learn what you need as a director, because you need an effect. Like you say, well, the axe needs to look like it's going into the head. All right, so you have choices. Soft axe, a real head, fake head, real axe, and where do you cut? So when you are trying to evoke an emotion or thing, you break it down into elements. To give you an example, when Jacob Elordi is being beaten by Victor, leg, you know, I knew I needed one close-up of Jacob with tears in his eyes. I said, well, we'll do all this now. I need that because I need the audience to go see his face and go, huh! Because a wide shot doesn't do it. So you broke it down into an effect. When the forgiveness is going to happen, there's a close-up of the hand of Victor grabbing the hand of the creature. And that's the trigger. You know? People are going to go, and they're going to release. The patting on the head, that's an element. You know, so, and you know, it's written on the screenplay that the creature says, you have heard my creator's tale, now I will tell you mine. Cut to a title. The audience goes, ooh, ooh. That's an effect. You break it down in how you achieve it. And it's the same. So I learned all that from him. He became sort of a second father. He was always great. He was always loyal. He was always true. And that's what I learned from him. And I miss him.
Okay, let's really let Guillermo hear it, you guys. Guillermo del Toro.
As they say in Mexico, au revoir.
Mexico!
Stopped.